Good evening. I hope you're all keeping well wherever you are in these very strange times. But I'm very pleased so many could join me. I can see on my attendees, I've got people from all over the Middle East and Africa. So that's absolutely fantastic. And so it's good evening from me. I'm here in the United Arab Emirates. I'm Professor Tim Campbell. I'm a visiting professor of international management with the University of Northampton. And it is my pleasure to take you through this webinar about the Doctor of Business Administration program. So what I'd like to do is spend just about 15 minutes where I'm going to go through a presentation, just highlight a few key things about the program itself. And then as soon as I've done that, I will take questions, which is the most important part, I think. So firstly, let me just crack on and talk for, as I say, about 15 minutes, just about a few things about the program. But before I do, just a word about Northampton. I would doubt if many of you have been to Northampton. I hope you have. But for those of you who haven't, on my map of the UK here, I've put a great big arrow that just points to where Northampton is. It's an old historic town, and it's about an hour north of London if you're on the train, about 100 kilometers. And of course, Northampton is where you will find the University of Northampton. And you used to find it just on the outside of the town and the country, but they built a brand new campus with $500 million that opened in August 2018. And in fact, in that slide there in the start, you can see me standing outside the brand new campus just after it opened, just not long after it had opened there, just at one of the entrances. So on the university, or at the university, you'll see this building here, and on one of the floors of this building, this is the photo on the right, is the doctoral research students area. So it takes up a whole floor, and it's somewhere wherever you're in the UK as a student, you can go for as long as you like, and there's always a space there for you to sit and to work if you get to be on the campus. So that's the Northampton, and that's the new campus. A few words about the university itself. I'm sure you've all done your own research and you've had a look at the university's website, so I've just picked out a few things really. You'll find out when you look at the history of the university that the education dates back an awfully long time in Northampton to about the 13th century, but the modern university has its origins in about the 1920s when it was a technical college and has developed over the years. And then today it has about 14,000 students and about 1,500 staff. So it's a large British public university. There's only two rankings that matter, and I say that because these are rankings that are done by the British government or a body that represents the British government. One of them is called the Research Excellence Framework, and the other is the Teaching Excellence Framework. And this one here is the one where UK universities are ranked according to the quality of their teaching. And the Northampton has a gold. They're awarded as gold, silver, or bronze. And just one other point I've pulled out from the history of the university is that it has been shortlisted, was shortlisted rather, for 3 years in a row for the Business School of the Year at the Times Higher Education Awards. And there's more than 120 business schools in the UK, only 6 are shortlisted each year. So to do it 3 years in a row is a pretty good achievement. All right, so that's Northampton, that's the university. Let's get on to what we're really here to talk about, and that's the Doctorate of Business Administration program. Now, the first question, and the most common one I always actually get, is what is a doctorate? Well, in its simplest terms, a doctorate is the highest degree that you can attain. There are some very minor exceptions to that. There are some postdoctoral certificates and things in specialist fields, but generally speaking, anywhere around the world, the highest degree that you will attain is a doctorate. So it's sometimes called a terminal degree. And there's two types of doctorates. One is we call professional doctorates. These are for people who are engaged primarily in a profession. So the ones you'll be most familiar with are probably medical doctors. They, of course, do a professional doctorate in medicine, an MD. There's also pharmacists, have a doctorate in pharmacy. Engineers have a doctorate in engineering. educators have a doctorate in education, etc. So you can see what I mean. For all of these professions, all of these fields, there's a doctorate for these people who are primarily engaged in a profession. And of course, the one for the business and management people out there is the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration. So it's meant for applied research for people who are in that profession. The other type of doctorates we had are for people who are primarily engaged in research or academia or universities, and those are research doctorates. And the most well-known of that is a PhD. So they are completely equivalent academically. They both confer upon the bearer the title of doctor, but they just have different audiences, different applications. Professional doctorates want you to do something that's applied, something that will change something in your professional field, whereas research doctorates can be purely theoretical. They don't need to be so practical. So they are academically equivalent, and they are in fact both research-based degrees, but as I say, the focus is different. And there's a nice quote from the all business schools that I quite like, and I know it's very wordy, but I think just to make that distinction clear, it's worthwhile that I just read it through for you. So PhD programs in business focus, I need to move my screen around, there we go. PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economic, and related fields. Most PhD in business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors, or as senior researchers in business or government. Okay, so that's the research doctorate. And if we have a look now at the DBA, and then in the, there we go. So the Doctorate of Business Administration, remember this is the professional doctorate. These programs focus on the application of theory rather than on the development of new theory. So the Doctorate of Business Administration, by virtue of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical applications and managerial settings than a PhD. Okay, so I hope that makes it a bit clearer for you what the difference of these two things is. One's for professionals, the other's more for researchers. Let's get on to the DBA program now. So the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration program from the University of Northampton, is taught on campus, and then it's also taught at a distance. And that's what we do here, and that's how what Stafford helps out with to actually conduct the workshops in the United Arab Emirates. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But just some of the topics that students do on a DBA program. These are some of our current students, and just a random selection of some of the things that they're doing. One's doing a critical examination of a performance management system. Another's doing leadership styles and employee performance, an assessment of corporate governance in the public sector, assessing the value chain in a manufacturing business, reasons for investing in high-tech startups, resolving project conflicts, and agile project management. As you can see, in a DBA program, you can do anything business and management. It could be strategy, human resources, accounting, finance, entrepreneurship, business ethics, social responsibility, anything that that fits within a business and management realm. Now, how is it taught? So twice a year, we run an intake here in the United Arab Emirates. It's exactly the same as that taught on campus at the University of Northampton. The tutors, the professors fly in. They're exactly the same as the people who do it on campus. Everything is identical, just the location. So it's, of course, easier for you guys in the Gulf and Africa to get to. You'll see at the top of my slide here. Well, actually, I'll talk more about that in a moment. Let me just tell you how it's done first. So usually, and the next start date is the 4th to 6th of June, The first 2 years are what we call taught. That's when you'll come and actually be taught 3 days for 7 modules over 2 years. So you'd come on the very first workshop, the 4th, 5th and 6th of June, which is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, always a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You would do principles of research. And then about 3 months later, you would do your next one. And then 2 or 3 months later, your next one. So you're just doing one at a time. And your consultant at Stafford will have the exact dates for these, by the way. The full timetable is out. But that's what you do over the first 2 years, where you understand everything about how to research, everything you need to know. And then in the second 2 years is when you do your thesis. That's what we call your professional research. So there's no more taught elements. You'll be working with a supervisor, 2 supervisors, one from the home campus, one who will be here more locally, and they will guide you through that thesis process. Now back to that, what's in bold at the top of my slide there. Of course, because of what's happening, all workshops are going to be taught virtually until further notice. So that, of course, means they won't be face-to-face in the United Arab Emirates. The professors will be delivering them from the home campus virtually, similar to what we're doing now. So there is, of course, no need to go anywhere until things get better, which I hope isn't too long. But that's how it's going to be done for now until, or how it is being done from now until further notice. They'll be done virtually. And the university is actually very used to this. A lot of the resources are already online. The only thing in the university's virtual learning environment. So the only thing that's changing is rather than the face-to-face being in a classroom, it gets changed to being virtual. Okay, so assessment for how was this program assessed? Each of these modules has a slightly different method of assessment. And it can be an essay, a presentation, a debate, a report, anything. No exams. In some way, it's some form of an assignment assessment. And your professors in each of the modules will, of course, make it very clear on what they need. And then in that last 2 years, when you do your thesis, it's a 40,000-word thesis. And you're assessed by that, what's called a viva voce examination, or an oral examination. And that is the only time you do need to go to the University of Northampton, where you'll be assessed by an internal person and also an external, which will be somebody from a different British university. Right, where was I? Here we are. What about support for the program? There's lots of it. There's the International DBA Program Leader. That's a lady called Dr. Hala. And when you apply and you do your interview, you will meet her. She'll be one of the people who does the interview. You have the local DBA Program Leader, which is, of course, me. I live here in the United Arab Emirates. Every module has its own specialist tutor. When you get to the thesis stage, there's a director of study and 2 research supervisors. Administration, there's all of the administration, access to all of the university's resources, of course. As well as that, if you can't find someone, or you don't know where to go, Stafford can also help you point them in the right direction. The virtual learning environment I talked about, we call that NILE, the Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. That's where you have everything for your course, from lecture slides to videos, to where your tutor will set up an online classroom. Everything is on this one virtual learning environment. And there's an extensive online library at Northampton. All the resources you need are there. There's no need to go and find a physical library anymore. Not like it was back in my days many years ago. These days, everything online. Let's have a look at the entry requirements. So these are fairly standard for a doctoral program, that you'll hold a master's degree in a business-related subject, ideally completed within the last 10 years. But if it's not, you will, but if it's later than that, as it may be for some of you, as long as you've been doing some training courses, or at least you can show that you've been keeping your knowledge up to date, then that will be okay. And the admissions team will look at that. Normally have a minimum of 5 years of work experience, at least some of which should be at a senior level, and then be employed in a leadership management role capable of supporting the learning outcomes. And that's important because especially for the first 2 years that you're working on your facilitated modules, some of your assignments will be based on your positions that you're in at the moment. And of course, when you get to the thesis stage, if you're really going to understand what you're doing, you need to be working in a professional role that's at a suitable level. The requirements then. Application requirements. The first is standard, a CV, personal statement, 2 references, normally an academic and a professional, but if it's been a long time ago since you're at university, then they'll generally be okay with 2 work references. Your certificates and transcripts, evidence of English language, if it's not your first language, but if you did your master's in English or studied in English, that would be fine. And then the last 2 I put in bold because they're important. You will have an interview with, as I mentioned, the program leader, Dr. Harler, and then you'll also have somebody else who's a specialist in your subject area. So let's say you're doing something in strategy. You'll have somebody who knows about strategy, of course. And in that interview, they're going to ask you about your application documents, where you're working, why you want to do a DBA, that type of thing. But they'll also ask you about your research proposal. That will be the focus. So it's important to get that right. It's only a short proposal, about 1,000 words, and there is a template to do it. But let me just tell you a little bit more about the proposal. It's done at this stage for 3 reasons. They want to know, are you capable of studying at doctorate level? So they expect the proposal not to be brilliant, of course. You're going to learn how to do a proposal when you get on the course, how to do a really good one. But at least at this stage, they should be able to look at this and say it's of sufficient quality to study at doctoral level. They also want to know, does your proposed research fit with the nature of a DBA? Essentially, is it an applied business and management topic, not a purely theoretical topic, or not in some other area, of course, not in engineering or something. And the third thing they want to know, does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now, there are supervisors in all the major business and management areas. However, if you're looking at doing something very specialized or very technical, they may not have an appropriate supervisor. So certainly at this stage, make sure you keep it broad enough that it fits within strategy, HR, accounting, finance, whatever, but it fits within an identifiable knowledge. It's not very narrow and specialized. What do the Northampton team look for in a proposal? Can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can the applicant reference? You know, they're only expecting 5 or 6 sources. They're not expecting much, and all of these you can simply get from Google Scholar. But they want to know, can you reference using the Harvard method? Can you write a brief literature review and cite some authors in the field? Do you have a basic understanding of research methods? And of course, the good news is all business and management graduates should have these skills. The fees, of course, are very reasonable from a doctorate program, which is at a distance, remember. Remember, it's also not, strictly speaking, an online program, or that's the way we've had to do it at the moment. There is face-to-face interaction, again, when we're allowed to do so. But for your current fees, please do check the Stafford Global website, because they do change intake to intake. So I want you to make sure you've got the current fees, and they'll be on there. Last word from me, at least for the presentation. Why should you do a DBA at Northampton? Because it's an investment in your future, both in academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. It will contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected your thesis will be published. There's international and local supervision and workshops from leading international faculty. I said that was my last word, but it's not quite. One last little quote from me. Completion of the Northampton, as I get my screens out of the way, there we go. Completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert able to lead and manage at the very highest levels. You will have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative, and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. Really, for me, I'm saying the DBA is an investment. It will simply set you apart as a complete expert in your field. You can go to the highest levels in organizations. You can look at consultancy. You can even teach in academia if that's what you want to do. It will open up many doors for you. Right, now it's time for questions. So I hope that answered at least some of the ones that you had. The easiest way, because I've got a big group of you here, on the right of your screen, you'll see a question. A little question box. Oh, wow, I can see I've got lots of questions already. Okay, you've obviously found it. Where you can ask as many questions as you like. And that's the easiest way, if you just type your question there for me, and then I can just get through them one at a time. So let me see where we are. So let me start from the top. So my first question is, I completed my master's degree about 13 years ago, but have extensive senior managerial experience. Will I be able to apply for the program? Yes, no problem. Even though it's more than 10 years ago, as long as you can show you've been doing some courses and keeping your knowledge up to date, you know, short courses that you might do at work or something like that, that would be fine. The duration of each module, as I mentioned, the workshop is 3 days long, but each module's about 10 weeks long. Okay, so do get the timetable from your Stafford Global consultant, because they will give you the exact timetable. You'll see when the workshops are and when the assignments have to be handed in by. Will the degree state online distance learning? No, it won't. It's not an online degree. It's considered a part-time degree. Are there any additional expenses besides the fees? The only additional expenses for those who, when, again, I say this, I know I keep saying this, but when the workshops, when again we can run the workshops again in the UAE, it will be traveling to the UAE for those who don't live here and their accommodation costs. But of course, that's not an extra cost at the moment because we're doing everything online. Next one, the next question is saying, hello. Hello, Sarah, to you too, and good evening. Here's my next one. Here's one about PhD programs. Are PhDs offered on a part-time basis? Yes, universities do offer PhDs on a part-time basis. But certainly the UK ones, which is where my background is, so I can speak with the best amount of knowledge. They certainly are offered, but they do tend to be rather long. I think for most universities, a part-time PhD is somewhere between 4 to 6 years, but most people take closer to 8 years to finish. So they are about. And then my next question is, are there scholarships available for the DBAs and how can one apply for it? Please do check with your Stafford Global consultant to see if there is anything available for this intake. They'll be able to best advise you. Can the workshops be delivered directly in the UK rather than the UAE? Well, they do have an on-campus intake, but it follows a different timetable than we do here in the UAE. So with our students, you're expected to attend with your intake in the UAE. Okay, I'm getting a question here. Can you do the program in a shorter time period? The short answer is no, not really. But you'll be pleased to hear that, because it's a doctoral level of study. As soon as you get on the program, you won't be asking that question. You'll realize there is a lot of work involved and you need that time. There's simply no need to rush it. I mean, I suppose you could do your thesis in less than 2 years if you were really, really good, but I don't see the benefit in doing that. The key thing is to pass, and you will need that 4 years to do it. Yes, and Fatima is here saying about, with the current world health situations, will the workshops be held? As I mentioned, the program is 100% guaranteed going ahead. There is no problem with that at all. All that's happened is that the face-to-face workshops, of course, can't happen, so we've just moved those online. But the program, the dates, everything continue as normal. Let me can I have a list of the topics that the university can supervise? Basically, they can supervise anything that you're interested in, as long as it's not too technical or specialized, as I said. And if you want to have and then I look at all, by the way, I look at whenever you send in your application documents and you send in your research proposal, all the proposals get sent to me first for comment before they get submitted to the university. So if I think something's too specialized or I think it needs a little bit more of something, I'll tell you. So the best thing is consider any topic can be supervised, get the application done, get the research proposal done, then I can have a look and give you some advice about it. The next one is about the word count per assignments. I can't remember off the top of my head what the word counts are, but at doctoral level, that's not really something we focus on too much about word counts, such as you might do in a master's degree level. It's more at a doctorate level, everything's a bit more individualized and a bit more, I'm going to say the word grown up. I'm sure you know what I mean by that, though. We tend to, we tend to, there's only a small number of students who ever study at this very high level. So you'll find things are done a bit more tailored to the requirements. I stopped my DBA studies at another university. Can I get exemptions for the module if I join your DBA? Not really. It's very difficult to switch between DBA programs because every university teaches them in slightly different ways. So it's hard to map what you've done onto what this university would do. So you would need to start again, but it's best to start from the beginning anyway, so you're developing over the whole program and with your intake. I'm getting there, I'm almost getting there. There we are. This one's about accommodation for students who come from other GCC countries. Again, that's one for your Stafford Global consultant who will know more about the technicalities of accommodation and scholarships and that type of thing. So please make sure you ask that for whoever you're in touch with at Stafford. After the taught modules are complete, can I do the rest of the program on campus in the UK? There wouldn't be any benefit of doing that because after the taught modules are complete, there are no more taught modules. It's purely supervision with your two supervisors and the student. So you can visit the campus whenever you like, no problem with that, for as long as you like, but there wouldn't be any particular benefit in doing that. Okie dokie. What happens if you miss a workshop? Again, will again apply for once we can get back to the face-to-face workshops. If you do happen to miss one, then you'll have to catch up as best you can with your tutor. But those workshops are compulsory. So, something might happen, family life, work life, whatever, and you just can't make a workshop. That's fine. You'll be able to try and do your very best to catch up. But, you must do your very best to get there. The deadline for the application is as soon. This is a good question because I know I said that the program starts at the start of June, but the application process, there's a lot of documents for you to get together. You have to write the proposal, then you have to get it all to your consultant at Stafford, then it goes to the university and it's assessed. Then if they like the initial assessment, you'll be invited for an interview with the program leader and the subject expert. So all of this takes time. So you really have to get those applications in as soon as possible, absolutely as soon as possible. Be working on them now, get them done as soon as you can. And my next question, what would happen if there's no suitable supervisor for my proposed research topic? Well, we would find that out before you even started. So if you came, as I say, if you came up with an initial proposal that there was simply no supervisor available for, you wouldn't be accepted onto the program. So that wouldn't be an issue. Okay, Hassan has given me a question I just don't know the answer to. I made a mistake of paying to Stanford University instead of Stanford. Remember, it's not Stanford, it's Stafford. I think for that question, Hassan, you're much better to give me an email directly, so I know exactly, because I'm not exactly sure what that question is about. As soon as I finish this presentation, I'm going to put my email address and my phone number up on the screen. So as soon as I've finished, please do email me directly with that question, because I'm not quite sure about that, what you're asking there. Yes, Hassan, please do email me directly with your questions so I can understand exactly what it is you're asking there. Will I have access to journals in the library? Absolutely. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of them on that library. No difference there. Harry's asking, any differences in applying via Stafford or applying directly online? To do this intake here in the UAE, you must apply through Stafford, not the university itself. Oh, here's a long question. Here we are from Michael. Let me see. Very good. Oh, that's a very good question there from Michael. I'm sure he won't mind if I read it out. He says, I did an executive master's of science in organizational development. I have aspirations to venture into management consulting and academia. Does this program position me to excel in these fields? That is exactly what a DBA program is there for. That's what it's supposed to do, and what a lot of our students on it are thinking of doing. Either setting up, some of them setting up own businesses, a lot of thinking consultancy, training, academia, others just to move further in their industry. So definitely. Michael's also saying, you're in Nairobi, fantastic. I hope everything's all right over there. Are there plans to have it taught in Africa? Not at the moment, but the more African students we get on the program, the more we can consider that. But it's only a short jump over to the UAE when we do get back to doing these workshops. Okay, where are we? Here's a question from Emmanuel. If you further studying the Oh, that's very good. Emmanuel's just giving me an introduction to himself, which is great. From Ghana. Again, I hope everything's good over there. Dapo's asking, will the virus have any effect on the admissions? No, it won't, but please bear in mind that first workshop will probably not go ahead face to face, because it looks like this is not going to be over by then, so it will have to be done virtually. The tutors will do it virtually, but it will go ahead as usual. Daniel's asking for the cost breakdown. Please, Daniel, contact your Stafford Global consultant. They will give you the exact fees, breakdowns, and everything there is. If you're not in contact with someone there already, I'm sure you are, but if you're not, when you see my email address at the end of this presentation, just send me an email. Oh yeah, and Manuel's saying that he's got some sponsorship for the course. That is fantastic stuff, and they want some forms and letters of admission. Again, in fact, I'll put my email. Email me directly, Emmanuel. Be easiest. Okay, where was I? I am getting there just about. Michael. Oh yeah, Mike was saying that now that the taught sessions are being run virtually, will they be full-day events? No, what the professors have been doing for the workshops that we're currently holding for other intakes is they do it their own way. Some of them will break it down into 2-hour slots and do a few evenings a week. Some will stick to that 3-day weekend and just do some big sections. So it's completely down to the professor how they prefer to deliver it. But because they're virtually, of course, it doesn't mean that they have to do them completely on 3 days anymore. They can split them up and give a bit of space in between. So it's completely up to your professors how they like to do that. Here we are. Okay. Here's a question. Is the interview based on the research topic or general questions? It is focused on your research proposal. They will also ask you things about what's your motivation for doing a DBA. Of course, they'll ask you about your work and what in your organisation, but the focus will be on that research proposal. So do make sure that you know it and that you do put some thought into it. All righty. Okay, I think that's almost all of it. Oh, here's a good question from Mapizzo. Can I have a list of past doctoral students to familiarise yourself? The students we've been running, what intake is this? It's just coming up to 4 years since our first intake. So we're just starting to get people finishing. We don't have our first finisher yet. That person started 4 years ago, but he's one of my students and he's just about to submit. So over the next coming months, our students will start rolling through, finishing every 6 months. But at the moment, we're just finishing off with the first intake. I think I did it. Wow, that was thanks so much, everyone, for all your questions. Let me just put this box back. Get back. Right, there it is, because I had a few questions there that I think you'll be better to email me directly so I can answer you, because I'm not sure I didn't quite understand the context just from our short question. So if there's anything else you want to know, feel free to give me a call. But of course, for a lot of you being in all different parts of the world, probably an email is easier, but up to you. Anything you want to know, just give me an email directly. So that's all from me. I hope when we're doing face-to-face again, I will actually see you face-to-face and you'll be on this program with me. But for the moment, we're running virtually, so I still hope to see you on the program. And just for me, finally, just stay safe, everyone. I hope everything's all very well where you are. Any questions at all, let me know. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.